Welcome to the Squat Plug. On today's episode, we'll be talking about warm-ups, a little bit about the Arnolds, and a few other things that are not as, I'm going to say, clear-cut. Today's episode will be myself, Mateo, and Mark, who's joining us from Florida remotely. Mark, what's going on? How you doing?
Oh, shit.
I guess you're doing really good, huh? You're enjoying your fair life?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been sitting here waiting for you guys for so long I didn't get to eat lunch.
What are you having?
I'm having a fucking core power and a handful of nuts.
Oh, I like that. That's my favorite.
Which brand? Is it D's by any chance?
Yes.
All right, so warm-ups. How about them?
How about them?
Actually,
So I guess we could talk about like what the purpose of an actual warm-up is, what do's and don'ts, and our own personal experiences with what we like to do.
I'm with it. If anything, Mateo, you want to lead off with this?
yeah, I guess. I mean, me personally, like, I don't do any kind of like warm-ups besides like getting under the bar and start squatting the bar itself. I don't know. People have always been like almost like shaming me for doing that, but I've never had an issue with it. Like, I don't know.
How dare you?
I know, right? It's been like since I first started like lifting, I never did warm-ups. Mostly because I was lazy and like I never liked the idea of just like doing all that shit, like spending like 20 minutes just like getting ready to get on the bar. So instead I would just like do a few sets with the bar, and everybody would be like, "Oh, why are you not warming up? That's why you always get hurt, and like that's why you're not getting strong." I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, bro. I'll try my warm-ups the next time I train." And I would never do them. I just
As he gains hundreds.
But that's the thing, though. No, go ahead.
As he gains hundreds of pounds to his total, they're talking about how that's why he can get stronger. Like, what the fuck? But
Well, what I was going to say is you are warming up, right?
Yeah.
It's like people will always try to, it's like they try to deflect the actual conversation to like, oh, the warm-up's supposed to be these things you do before you get under the bar. And it's like the actual warm-up is, you have work sets that are, somewhere 80, 90% of 1RM, right, usually. And the sets you take to get to those work sets is your warm-up. Like it's like, oh, you need to do, band walks and clamshells and, bird dogs before you squat a 45-pound barbell or bench a 45-pound barbell. Like, that's always been my thing. It's like, I'm not warming up. I'm literally doing that's the warm-up, the bar, the plate, 2 plates, and so on. And it's just, I don't really see personally much of a need to do anything prior to actually getting under the bar.
So where that comes from, apparently, and to show basically just how wrong-minded the mindset these people have, basically comes from the fact that, people have this erroneous belief that you're activating muscles.
Right out of the gate. Just
But legit, so they think they're activating muscles.
Yeah.
Like in other words, they're turning them on and that they're apparently off or something like that. And so that's why they do clamshells, and that's why they do like bird dogs and this, that, and the other thing beforehand. Because
I always tell people if your muscles weren't activated, you wouldn't have been able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Thank you. You wouldn't be able to walk around if your glutes were turned off and whatnot. You wouldn't be able to.
Exactly.
But even if they are turned off, right?
I mean, your muscles move your joints. That's how your body.
But even if they are
works.
quote unquote turned off, right? Wouldn't they turn on as soon as you start warming up for your sets?
They would.
Yeah.
Basically, all it requires is movement.
That's like. That goes into what is part of the warm up, right? It's like the 4 main points that I kind of consider of a warm up are increasing body temperature, which is elevating your heart rate, increasing blood flow, things like that, which you're going to do once you start squatting anyways, or benching or deadlifting or whatever you're doing. If you feel stiff or whatever, you're going to reduce that perceived stiffness through increasing the blood flow and getting your body temperature increased. And then ultimately, like, you're trying to, like, I think what most people think when they think muscle activation, even if it, if they're not thinking like, oh, your muscles don't turn on and off, it's like you're trying to like increase like muscle excitation, right? Like the efficiency of your nervous system, like your muscles, like the firing rate of your muscles, things like that. And then obviously like the psychological piece, like the psychological arousal, the mental preparedness of actually doing, a top single or your top sets or whatever it may be. And it's like you hit all 4 points by just getting under the bar, doing the lift you're going to do, and then incrementally putting weight on the bar that's your warm up. That's hitting all those main points. And it's like, to do all these things prior, one is a big, it's time. It's the cost of time, right? Like, so you're going to spend 15, 20 minutes or longer doing all, or 45 minutes, or longer doing all these things. And it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's almost redundant.
No, it is. It is.
At that point, you get to a point that it's like you start fatiguing yourself for no reason, and instead of like helping a performance, like making it worse.
Yeah, which is you're pre-fatiguing. So I don't know how I view these things, is I start to look at things not just off of basically an anecdotal stance over here. I look at things basically more long term, right? When it comes down to like all my training philosophy and a whole bunch of things, I guess, that inform my decision making process. It's let's not look at what's taking place right now in the past 10, 20, 40, 50 years of training and so on and so forth. Let's look at things at a more longer snapshot. I want to say even from an evolutionary standpoint. Now look what takes place with most animals, and ourselves included, like in our history and stuff like that. How much warming up do they do prior to engaging their activities?
You love that.
But you ever seen a lion warm up before it takes down a gazelle?
Exactly. To quote, yeah. Well, Jack LaLanne actually said the same thing. Back in the 50s or 60s. But legitimately though, so this is what we're looking at, and when people often dismiss it, but evolution is a very powerful force. So we're basically evolved to be able to go from 0 to 60, in the blink of an eye, and it's like our ancestors as well. Look at animals out there, they just say gazelles like sitting around eating like fucking grass like in Serengeti and shit, and all of a sudden there's a fucking cheetah coming after it. They say, hold on a second, I got to do a couple of bird dogs over here, bro. And then and then go about going as quick as it needs to go. No, it's one of those instantaneous things. So we're adapted and evolved to basically to warm up, quote unquote, and to be ready when the moment hits. So your maximum exertion, I guess, your ability to do the most you can and stuff like that, isn't something where basically you need to warm up towards it. I think fundamentally. I mean, there are certain instances where maybe I guess you can optimize things to some extent, but there's no real science behind that. In a sense, I guess you need to do X amount of reps that are this specific to this movement or whatnot, so you can prime yourself 100% of this. That doesn't exist. There's nothing there to support that. But what you do know is that as long as your proprioception is at that point, where basically you're connected, you're on, you turned on, and you can listen to that by yourself. You can basically just think about the movement as though you're not just moving 45 pounds. You basically have the bar in your hands. You're thinking, all right, what am I going to be doing with this if this was 500 pounds? How am I going to be moving? And so you basically move the way you're going to be moving at the end, as opposed to just lollygagging. So I find people have issues with warm-ups and whatnot. When I look at the warm-ups, it belies what's taking place there, what's actually taking place. It's the fact that they're not taking it seriously, and they're treating the movement as though they're just getting over it to get it over it. You see basically just throwing the weight around, that kind of stuff, loose positioning and all that kind of shit. And then all of a sudden the top sets hit and they still don't know how to move because they haven't been moving the way they're supposed to move in the earlier sets. I say
there's no intent behind it.
Precisely. Take it seriously. What I do basically with 45 pounds, I'll come down as though there's like 400 plus pounds on me. I'm basically tightening down and I'm pressing there as though it's that much weight. I'm not like going to be like doing the West Side Barbell stuff where they're pressing the bar as hard as they possibly can, but I'm basically moving it as though there's heavy load there. And what happens now, all of a sudden at 225, I'm doing a whole lot better, or 275, wherever I decide to jump up to, whether I'm going pound plates or kilo plates. And it's basically about moving in a way that overlaps with the way you'll be moving at the range you'll be working at your top set range. Many people are divorced now because basically say, oh, okay, I just need to warm up, as opposed to saying I need to master my movement pattern. And you master the movement pattern with specificity. You don't master with clamshells. You don't master with doing like bird dogs and that kind of dumb shit. If people were worried about warming up and like fucking, I don't know, like things being more optimized instead of focusing on how they're actually moving in the movement pattern itself. Or are you moving as though you're benching 450 pounds, as though you will eventually and so on and so forth? Or are you moving just for the sake of movement?
I mean, ultimately, if you want to optimize or maximize your warm-up, it comes down to, minimizing fatigue and maximizing the top-end performance, right? So like, you're going to do a bar, a plate, 2 plates, or whatever. You want to make sure that you take enough sets so that you feel ready to do your top sets mentally, physically, whatever, but you don't want to take too many so that you're too fatigued, the weights are moving slowly, and you're not able to actually maximize the top end performance of that day.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, less is better. Like, at least for me, right? So like, I don't know how you guys warm up. Like, I don't know how your jumps are, but like for me, like especially like for any lift, I just go up a red plate, literally just like jump a plate, 1, 2, 3. Even for bench, like I've realized that by doing that, I like my 3 reds feels like 340, because of the way that I'm used to like warming up. Like I'm used to taking more jumps. So now that I'm just taking 3 jumps, I'm like, oh, this is the same as taking 340 instead of taking 375.
Yeah.
So everything feels.
I think. No, yeah, I was going to say, like, I think people not wanting to take those big jumps is more of a mental block than a physical one.
Absolutely.
You know, because they know that, okay, if I jump, like for you, right, like 3 reds it's still heavy-ish, you know, for bench press, but it's not like, it's not a max weight. But it's like, you know, if you go from 275 right to 386, like, it's good. I feel like people need that, like, it's like, oh, I know that weight's going to feel heavy, so I got to hit something in between. You know what I mean? When it's like, well, you probably don't have to. You probably just need to feel that 386, and then you can make a decision on where to jump from there.
Yes. And so what happens is I see that people basically color their perception of the weight itself by that. You know, so when you think of I need a pit stop before I hit 386, for example, you find that people basically will end up doing a little bit less afterwards because you're married to that. You're saying to yourself, in other words, I'm afraid of this weight as opposed to this is a weight that's pedestrian, and you're not as confident as you could be. And when you worry about things like that, you're not going to be executing you're not going to be focusing on execution. You can be worried instead about whether or not you're going to be able to make the lift, and that takes away from the actual performance.
And also, a lot of people like tend to not take smaller jumps as they go up. So like, if you take like a 20-pound jump, your next jump is like not going to be more than 20. It's either
you're not going to take a 20-pound jump than a 50-pound jump.
Yeah.
So different things. I mean, just to speak anecdotally, because I think maybe we've also been speaking anecdotally up until now. None of us has really cited any real science and that kind of stuff. I admit that. But from an anecdotal perspective, to kind of further things, for the past couple of months, been having some issues with one of my lifters, Horace, right? So this guy benches 430, 440 in that range, and he's been having some issues with his bench press to the point that he's been sending me, I guess, like nonstop barrages about, you know, he doesn't feel confident in it, he's moving too slow with it, there's some issues, and so on and so forth. Then you typically work with a person to figure out what's taking place, external factors, training, all that kind of stuff. You know, and I really didn't focus on his warm-ups as much as perhaps I should have. I'll get to this point momentarily, but we were looking at sleep. We were looking at basically like the programming itself, and we worked on all that stuff.
Pause. You're facing this way a lot, so I have to adjust the mic.
Okay.
Okay, starting in 3,
God damn it, Bess.
2. Hey, I want this production good.
And so basically we're looking at all these other factors, and we weren't focusing on what was happening with warm-ups. And so one day, in fact, the other day, he asked me, earlier this week, he goes, Ylli, he goes, Ylli, that's what he calls me. You know, he goes, how do you typically do your warm-ups? And I gave my breakdown. So I'll start off, on occasion, in fact, I'll start off with just like, you know, put a black plate on either side. So I started like about 260, 270, depending on whether I have the kilocolors. And then I go up to like 386, 374, and then I go into work. And he goes, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so what's your warm-up looking like? And he told me like he did like, I think either, 10 to 20 reps with an empty bar, and then 135 pounds, like a shit ton of reps, 225 pounds, a shit ton of reps, and 315, a shit ton of reps. I'm like, Horace, you're drowning yourself in volume here. You're doing too much.
Yeah.
How about we do less? That same session, right, the next day after this, right? Next section, he basically he sends me a video. He goes, Ylli, 450, 460. I'm coming for your bench press. You know, he smacked 425. It looked like RP.
I'm coming, baby.
Yeah, legit. That's literally what he said.
That's awesome, though.
You know, so it's anecdotal and whatnot. But now you're seeing that essentially doing too much takes away from what you're going to be doing. You know, and it gets you in your head.
Well, like to go back to what you said about like your perception of the weight. You know, if you're a little scared of the weight, you think you need to take a set, you know, prior to that weight, so you're more prepared. It's not a physical thing. It's more like I need to be more mentally prepared to hit that weight. But once you can get over that and you recognize that, holy shit, if I actually skip that warm up and just, you know, hit that next one, then go straight to my top sets, I perform way better. I've experienced that with all my lifts pretty much, like particularly with squat. Like I would usually go like 1 red, 2 red, and then I would never jump to 3 reds, even though like I squat over 500, and it's like I would always hit like 2 reds and a yellow, then 3 reds. And I was like, you know what? I really don't need to do this. I'm just like worried about how the 3 reds is going to feel. Cause I always base like my subsequent performance off like, well, how does this 386 feel? Cause I'll kind of know like what my top end is going to be for the day based off this, which is also, I found out kind of bullshit. But I completely stopped doing it. Like the other day I went in and I was basically saying how I used to always want to take a set in between 2 reds and 3 reds squatting, because like, I don't know, I had this like psychological like block or like fear of like not necessarily like a fear of 3 reds, but I always kind of based my subsequent performance off how that 3 reds moves. So I was like, if I'm not ready for it and it moves slow, then that's going to like fuck me up mentally for like what weight I should put on the bar. And then I don't know, I kind of got to the point where I was like, dude, you really need to get over this, like this mental block and just keep doing, even if for the first couple sessions, it feels heavy, just fucking do it and see how it goes. So then like ultimately I started to realize that like if I would skip that warm up, 3 reds or 2 reds and a yellow, and I just went 1 red, 2 red, 3 red, my top end performance was always way better. So yeah, that's pretty much.
So I started doing the same thing myself with 4 reds on squats, right? And so what took place for me here was I found myself constantly like going like 3 reds and all of a sudden be like 3 reds in the yellow and there'd be 4 reds. This is at a point where I was fucking like hitting like 4 reds for like for 6 or 7 reps. I'm like, why do I need something below that? Why do I need something else? Literally I could ragdoll this weight any given day. Why am I doing more work than I have to? I was like, I didn't notice any difference. Conversely, when I decided to skip the yellow or like the blue, whatever it was, I went up to like 4 reds. All of a sudden I'm doing better. And then recently I had the same breakthrough for 5 reds. So in the past, basically, I would take like moderate jumps, like on any given day, no matter how well I felt, it'd be 4 reds and it'd be 5 reds for squats. And now, basically, if I'm feeling okay, I'm like, why am I taking the pit stop? Yeah. 606, I have to like maybe 5 or 6 reps as well. It's there, if not more. So I'm thinking like, do I really need to like, have the other warm up beforehand? Or is this not a weight that I can ragdoll any given day? Am I not a person who's building up to 700-pound squat? And so that kind of changed my mindset there. And all of a sudden, like the other day, I'm there like hitting 650 for double. Potentially had a 3rd rep in there, despite the fatigue and all the kind of stuff that I was dealing with. So I think the attitude a person demonstrates when it comes down to those warm-ups and whatnot, there's a whole lot to dictate the performance outright. If you take smaller jumps, it tells you there's a whole lot of that lack of confidence is an issue there, so much so that it bleeds into your execution, into your performance, as opposed to being a strength issue. So it's a mindset issue. Yeah. You work past that. You work on your confidence, and you do so basically by taking bigger jumps. It sets you up for success. And also you're less fatigued.
I mean, honestly, it would be good to have.
Totally agree.
It would be good to have somebody else that kind of disagrees with us because all 3 of us like are on the same page.
We are.
But
this is literally a circle jerk. Yeah. An anti-warm-up circle jerk. We are assholes for this.
Yeah, but anyway, so.
No, I honestly, like someone mentioned the other day when I did I put up the question box for like what they'd like to hear on this podcast, and someone mentioned more round table discussions, having other coaches or other athletes on, which I think would be great to have a different perspective or someone who potentially disagrees with that a little bit and wants to push back. Like I don't ever mind like having my ideas or my perspectives pushed back on a little bit. I think it does offer some like more nuance bring some more nuance to the conversation, and it's not just us circle jerking each other.
No, I agree. What I think is what we should do is actually to some extent bring in up and coming coaches and up and coming lifters and see what they have to take. There's a couple of things. First off, you get to hear their take and how they're working. We get to speak to them about the process, right? And maybe how it relates to how we do things, maybe how our athletes do things from a coaching perspective, maybe how we do things, I guess, from an athlete's perspective. We're a little bit better off, I want to say, a little bit more advanced in the career than they are, perhaps. But also gives them a spotlight. It puts them out there. It gives exposure to them, So this is something I think we need to do. I mean, I know many podcasts like to take basically the most elite of lifters and have them out there for whatever purpose. To hear their views, to hear the grind, set hustle, viewpoints. To hear them talk about burning ships and all that kind of good stuff. Because that's important. But I think it's important to have people out there, and try to, if we can, to bring them up. And so more people, I guess, are
I think it'd be great for, like you said, like beginner, intermediate lifters who, can have somebody to actually relate to instead of like always trying to compare themselves to like,
I know
all the, we don't have to name names to know who exactly that we're talking about.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I mean, we already have an intermediate lifter here. I'm talking about myself, Mark. I'm not talking about you. No.
Talking about beginners, that'll be me. I weigh 275 pounds. I total 1,800 pounds, and my dots is maybe at 340.
Yes. But yeah.
Clearly beginner.
But let's get.
Also, Ylli has a goal of 2,000 pounds, and he hasn't even totaled 1,800
Yeah.
yet. So I think it's a
18,
terrible goal to have.
1850. That's the magical
did he?
number.
Nice.
No, but you hit like a.
You need to hit, you need to hit
Yeah.
1850 before that goal's even realistic.
Yes.
But anyways, I think we should get.
And then I need to take ample amounts of steroids to make that 2,000 happen because it's impossible in Natty,
Yes.
apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
Anyways, I think we talked enough about intermediate lifters. I think we should go to a different.
Oh, speaking about elite
Yeah.
lifters, let's talk about the elitist. Let's talk about the elitist lifters. Let's talk about the Arnolds. So what happened?
That's what I was
First up, our predictions.
down the fucking shitter, bro. What
Oh my
what
God.
happened?
Oh, Lord.
No.
I
We got
don't.
exposed.
None of our predictions worked out.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
Nope.
Bob exposed the fuck out of us.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Petrie unfortunately bombed out, but shit happens, you know. And then there was a whole shit show afterwards.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. That
man.
really demonstrated exactly what...
The last
what
thing. I'm gonna say the last thing about this.
Yeah,
The
It's
last
not
thing.
gonna be the last thing.
yeah. But like for anyone that is
Spoiler
like,
alert.
should we like fill in some people like that might not know what's going on?
All right,
So basically, Brandon Petrie competed at the Arnold, and he bombed out like we said, and then afterwards, Russell came out on his stories and basically started roasting Petrie for bombing out because Russ had a beef with him apparently that Petrie wasn't even trying to start, but Russ got offended that Petrie did not mention him at a different podcast when a question came up about who is the best powerlifter right now. So Russ took that personally, and as soon as Petrie bombed out, he started like he literally grilled him for no reason, right? While he's sitting there and he didn't even compete at the Arnold, he started talking all that shit.
You know, it's crazy because like there was a Q&A like Mateo was saying where people are asking him who he thought the top lifters were. Like Brandon, who do you think the top lifters are? And Brandon goes and he basically talks about a whole bunch of people who are patently the top lifters, you know. And he doesn't mention Russell. They say, "Oh, what do you think about Russell?" He goes, "Well, he's not the top lifter right now. There are people who are better lifters than he is." It's an objective statement. It's an objective fact. Look at open powerlifting. That's what it tells you.
That might just cut out. Say that again.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear now.
Okay.
Just mic.
All right. So I'm starting that over again.
I guess.
So like, okay, start recording now or what?
Yeah, go.
So Brandon Petrie had the Q&A where basically somebody was asking him who he thought the top lifters were, and he gave his list, and it did not include Russell. And then he pressed him on it. They said, "Oh, why isn't Russell on your list?" And he said, "Because he's not the top lifter." And open powerlifting would basically tell you that's true. He wasn't the top lifter. You know, he still isn't. He's like, I think he's number 9 in the USAPL right now, based off the dots last I saw. So he's not number 1, he's not number 2, he's not number 3. It's an objective statement. This man said it with no whatchamacallit, no shade, no cap, nothing of the nature. And you look at Brandon Petrie's record, he's never been about that. You know, he basically he minds his own business, he does what he needs to do, he posts his lifts and that kind of stuff. He's not about shit talking. And yet Russell Orey decided to take that personally because he's on his Michael Jordan fucking whatever the fuck it is, you know, like a clone horseshit.
And I took that person.
Yeah, so I took it personally, and he decided to basically run with it and went on King of the Lifts and started dismissed his existence and said that he's a fucking nobody and all that shit. It's apropos of anything, so he had no reason to do so. And Brandon Petrie doesn't fucking respond. He just does his own fucking thing, does his lifts. If you look at his stories, look at his posts and whatnot, there's nothing directed at Russell. Again, he's doing his own shit. You know, he's talking about essentially what he talked about there was that he wanted to be the new 90 kg fucking I want to say you know, GOAT. He wanted to be the new Jesse Knorr. Here's what he was saying. And what happens is he has a very shitty beat, which happens to all of us. We all have those days, you know. And I remember seeing his training and like me seeing, and I even mentioned it in the podcast that his squats looked high. And so what took place is I thought that maybe it was fatigue, whatever, but it looked like he was just training high. And then he ended up bombing out because of depth, essentially. That was the driving force behind his bombing out. He had three red lights for all 3 lifts, you know, and it happens. But now it finishes, and you see Russell making these like ridiculous ass posts. You know, someone have to deal with these like emojis. This man's a full grown man. He's like apparently a millionaire, and he's making emoji like meme roasts. You know, he's not even at the meet. He's not competing, so he's sitting on his ass here. Watch this other dude, actually perform. He's actually in the arena and decides to fucking roast him with emojis. It's not even fucking witty shit talking. It's not fucking like Conor McGregor who fucking knows what the fuck he's talking
It's
about.
clown shit.
It's legit clown shit. Fucking, he's memeing him with emojis. Emoji roasting, bro. He's like a fucking mean 12-year-old girl, bro. You know, this is the shit that this is what Russell does. You know, because he has the time of day for that. So that happens, and now apparently, in addition to that, Tino Tornado and also Joey Flexx get in the fucking mix as well, and they start roasting him too. And he never said anything against them or anything against the Joey Flexx team. So it's just basically a whole bunch of like deep-seated hatred and fucking spite and envy and all that kind of shit coming out to the fore out of the fucking woodwork. Like, so my question here, I think Swolfester addressed it. He kind of showed it what it was. It's not so much, I guess, what you call the Brandon Petrie thing, as much as it is a pro Joey Flexx thing and fuck everybody else thing. And it's in his mindset.
Yeah.
And when this asshole comes at people, he talks shit about people and so on and so forth. He says, oh yeah, that's shit talking. But God forbid, you come at fucking Russ, you come at Weeds, you come at Joey Flexx. They say, oh, look at all this negativity in powerlifting. Whole lot of shit talking, that kind of stuff. And they basically will tell people you can't do this stuff and apparently go the legal route as they did in the Gage instance. Whatever. I think that's very low energy kind of shit to do. But it's, you see this whole thing basically where they talk about how you're supposed to be positive and you're supposed to be happy and so on and so forth and you're supposed to be promoting the sport, and then when it conveniences them, they will do the exact opposite. When Russ gets in there and he doesn't even compete at this fucking meet and decides to talk so much fucking shit about this fucking dude and whatnot, you know, that's where it becomes an issue with him, because he does so after having said,
especially when Russ squats high fairly regularly.
He just did it recently. He's last posted 725. Dude did a
So
quarter squat.
and the judges were extremely strict. Like Soph didn't get her third squat because of depth, and it's not like it was egregiously high. It was very borderline. Yeah. But like they were dinging everybody for depth that day. So like he probably would have got hit too. So like who the hell is he to talk?
Probably.
He got red lighted at a local meet. So that's all you have to know. Like that tells you enough, I think.
Well, if when I compete at my gym, my friends is refs.
Well, guess what? My gym, I get 3 white lights.
Squat depth.
Yeah. No, he's not. No, he's an asshole for this. He's legitimately a clown, and the fact that he has the following that he has is actually quite problematic, because it shows you, I guess, like, you know, where powerlifting is trending towards and who it supports. You know, I think it definitely should not be supporting this individual, because he's a hypocritical sack of shit, is what I think. If you're telling people one breath they're supposed to be supportive, and the other breath you're shit talking people and whatnot, it tells me you're a hypocrite. It tells me you're an opportunist. It tells me you really don't give two shits about what it is, I guess, your moral code is and whatnot, and you have no moral code, but you're there basically, in other words, to do whatever it is that propels you forward. You know, this is proven. And talking about depth and bomb outs and so on and so forth. You know, in 2019 Nats, Russ should have bombed out. He was 100% issued a clout rescue. His third squat was just as deep as his first two, when you got three red lights on. So for him to fucking throw stones in his fucking glass house and shit like that, yeah, it's pretty.
I think Russ is the last person that should be talking about depth, but also he has enough clout to be able to talk, to like be able to get away with it.
Yeah, apparently. Well,
but that's the unfortunate thing.
It is unfair. That's the problem. I mean, unfair or not, just basically people are oblivious and people are fucking idiots, because you have 30,000 like fucking some 1,000 likes for his fucking quarter squat lift the other day, 725, and he legitimately fucking quarter squatted it. It was nowhere near depth. It's like fucking.
He knows the right angle to film from too, so that
even then it was bad. Even then it was
questionable.
Bad. And he's like bragging about it. I'm like, bro, you fucking.
We know it is, but
you know, and I think everybody there does as well. They just basically want to see their boy, who basically they're supporting, shit like that.
I mean, I'll be honest, bro. Like, if my boy is squatting I'm not gonna sit there on camera and be like, yo, bro, that shit was high, bro. Of course I'm gonna hype him up. Like, I don't blame his boys, but also like you're like one of the best lifters in the world, right? So you have to know. I know. What is standard, what's not standard.
So it's standard matters when it conveniences him, when it conveniences Joey Flexx. Standard does not matter when it conveniences them. That's the whole thing. This is the whole hypocrisy.
Well, like, I need to tell a little story here. Like, this isn't like a national meet or anything. This was at a Gleason meet. Mm-hmm. His lifter, Steph Scoville, was squatting. This is when this is before we broke off from the IPF. Mm-hmm. They still had the 72 weight class. She was a 72 kilo lifter. She was squatting for the American record, and Soph was judging, and Soph red lighted her.
Good, yeah.
She got a 2-to-1 white to red. So she got the American record, which is actually cool, because it's like sealed forever in that 72 class, at least for the USAPL. Yeah. But you know, it's like, I don't care if you're my friend or not. You know, if you're squatting high, like, I'm not going to let you pass because we're boys. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I would appreciate a white light.
You need to hold people to the same standard that you wouldn't hold your other people to, you know, or people that you're not friends with.
I know. So
that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, for example, I'll roast Mateo's depth as well. I'll say, like, it's not the depth, not for nothing else. Me giving, like, attaboys, like, like clapping on the back for, like, shit that he
oh, my God. That's even worse when you're the coach and your lifter squatting high.
Yes.
And just because they have some heavy, just because they're loading the bar up to whatever, and you're just like, pat on the back, good job. It's like, no, that's not coaching.
In the comment section, but in the DMs, you have to be like, okay, bro, like, that was high. Like, you have to, like...
Honestly, I think even in the comment section, you should be honest. Because it shows people basically that you keep shit a buck. And, like, even if I miss depth and whatnot, people tell me, like, honestly, I need to work on this. And people tell me my pause and warm need to be, honestly, I need to work on this. So it's something you need to take into consideration, because come meet day, nobody cares about your fucking gym lifts. And they don't mean shit.
Yeah.
What matters
a buddy of mine sent me a picture the other day from the side. And he had some side spotters and stuff, and he's a few weeks out from a meet. And I have a feeling he sent it to me to ask because he was just being told that it's good by the yes men around him.
Exactly.
And he sent me the pic, and it was borderline, but it wouldn't have passed. I had to tell him,
a lot of people don't actually know what depth is.
6 squat PR, bro. You'll be good in comp. Just go do your thing. It's like, nah, man, that was high. You got to do better.
No, true. And a lot of people don't know what depth is. And more importantly, I think a lot of people don't care what depth is. So anyway, you see him making his lift. We're basically 725, and he misses depth clearly. And people are like, good job, Russ, good job. And it's absolutely not a good job. He's basically not being held to the standard in any way, shape, or form. And he's a person who's talking about being the top lifter, missing the fucking lift. You missed the lift, and you're congratulating yourself.
And you got people who would defend it anyways.
Of
They'll
course.
be like, who cares, bro? It's 725.
Yeah. Exactly. But that doesn't mean shit.
What do you mean? Who cares?
It doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't mean shit. And if you get the clout pass at a meet and whatnot, it doesn't validate your missed depth. Because you happen to have biased judges who pro you. And this does happen. This does take place. Who'll give you a fucking lift when you don't deserve it. I saw it happening at the last meet, by the way, for Blaine. Yeah. Where he was at, there were like 3 platforms, right? And one of the platforms that he's competing on, like, judging is strict. For depth, to like, giving everybody like fucking red lights, all that kind of shit. Like, all over the place. Like, shit. I go over the other platform, the third platform, and I'm seeing there, this dude goes in, and I'm going to say, if Russ's recent 725 was a quarter squat, this dude did I want to say, even less of a squat. Like legit, like an eighth of a squat. And guess what he gets? 3 white lights.
I don't know.
Dude, I'm watching this. I'm like,
there's always going to be favoritism.
Yeah, I know.
There's always going to be favoritism. And there's always going to be judges that aren't paying attention either. Like, I've heard that from,
of course,
from, like, national level judges where they're like, if I miss something, I got to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Good.
And it's like, I get, fuck you. I get that, right? But pay attention.
Thank you.
Like, if you need a mental break, do it between the lifters.
Yeah, I know. So I know, like, I also hear this other cope, right, from people who are officials, and they say, oh, because everybody complains about the officiating and this, that, and the other thing. And it's rightfully so, because, again, like I've said before, if you are held to the standard as a lifter, the person delivering that standard should be held to the standard themselves. It's that simple. It's not a complaint. It's not you being butthurt. It's legitimately you being dissatisfied with the fact that these people can't fucking do the most basic of jobs. You have the one job. Sit on your fucking ass and press the corresponding button.
One job.
Hey, you've never been a ref, so you don't know what they're going
through. Oh, the pressure. I'm sorry. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's so tough to have people like yell at you after the fact because you weren't paying attention.
Mateo's just hoping for gifts on meet day.
Yeah. Oh, I am praying for that because people say I don't squat a depth, so I'm praying for a good.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not gonna, if you get a gift, that's great, but.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm not gonna say no.
You shouldn't hope. You should not lift to standard in training and like just hope that you're going to get that on meet.
I mean, I'll take the gift, but at the end of the day, it's like there's 3 judges. You're going to get 1 gift. So like it's what, like 1 white light out of 9 lights that you could possibly get over 3 attempts?
No, I've seen some more gifting than that. Russell Ory's 2019 Nats squat was absolutely gifted by all 3 judges.
That's different.
They basically said,
I got a gift at my last meet from my bench because my lockout was so uneven, and like it took me, my right arm was locked out, and it took my left arm like 6 seconds
That's not a gift.
to catch up. And then I jumped the rack command, and they gave me white spots.
No, that happens. No, that does hapen. I mean, I've been gifted to the extent myself. It has happened. I've also been.
Danny Baez, thank you, baby. I appreciate it.
I also feel like I've been robbed as well, whatever. But I think when it comes down to the national level, you shouldn't be giving gifts of that nature. You're operating at a different caliber. There's a different level of expectation. And if as a federation you can't get your judges to fucking do the most basic of fucking duties at that point in time, then there's a fundamental flaw there, a fundamental issue.
You know what I think?
Well, these are at a national level meet. These are judges that are more experienced, so there shouldn't be that many mistakes at the end of the day. Like I get at a local meet, you have new and upcoming referees who are, it could be their first meet.
Yes.
And if they make some mistakes, they make some mistakes. But you got to make some, you got to crack some eggs to make an omelet.
New York State primetime, for example, was like a prime example of that happening. What I saw out there was it was a shit show. So many fronts. Anyway,
I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I was going to say I was going to try to get back on the topic over here about the Joey Flexx thing.
Okay, I was going to ask right before just one last thing before we get into that. You guys think that maybe we should have a video review for like at least national meets, so just in case. There's any kind of debate on the lift, you can just go back to the video and check it out.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
I don't know why they don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
They do that in every other sport.
Yeah. I mean, you can contest the lifts and so on and so forth. You can say I object to your ruling, and then you have it work out again.
Contest it and based on what is a jury gonna see that the judges didn't? If they don't have a video, how are they going to base it on?
Yeah, I know this whole system is very
well. I mean, essentially, they talk to the judges what did you actually see? Are you 100% sure? Because I watched the pro bench finals before we left Columbus, and one of the equip guys benched 771 at 94 kilos body weight. And I don't give a fuck if you don't like equip lifting. That's impressive as shit.
Yeah.
And so he got a 2-to-1. He got a 2-to-1, and they overturned it. And I mean, they basically just they had a little discussion on are you sure what you hit the red light for? And they ended up overturning it, which I thought was it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a world record, so
that makes sense.
If they're not 100% sure, they should have gave the red light.
Yeah, I mean that's my thing. I think if somebody's there's a debatable lift, I think the refs should give the white light.
It was. They called him for up and down, but it was he got stuck halfway up the range of motion. But I've watched, because he posted the video on Instagram, and I've watched it several times. And there's this point where he kind of gets a little shaky, but there's no blatant up and down. You know what I mean?
So
it's pretty cool they overturned it and gave him the
But I think what they could do over here is essentially have these lifts filmed, particularly at the national level, to ask people to have 3 cameras, right? One in the front, one on both sides, to film these lifts.
They're already filming the lifts.
Yeah,
precisely.
Yeah.
They're already doing it anyway.
Arnold, they had really good angles. But they were not used for to help the judges.
I don't know. It boggles my mind, to be honest.
They should. They absolutely should.
It would benefit everybody. For if you're competing against a person you think they're arbitrarily given a lift or blessed with a lift and whatnot, it allows you to work against it. And it gives you, actual evidence that works, as opposed to what do you think? Oh, it felt as though maybe this said nothing. No, there's actual raw footage of the lift itself.
You have objective data to show whether or not the lift should have passed.
Precisely. So that helps out. So at the end of the day, people can refer to that. You can be in your feelings, but when the camera says whatever shows, you can't contest it. So I think it'd be more important there. So back to the main topic here about the Swole Fester Flex beef. I find that that stuff is a bigger problem than people even understand. Because basically what happens now is this person is showing people that these abuses take place, right? In other words, you're talking to shit and this, that, and the other thing, and it turns out that Joey Flex's program is an absolute it's a joke. It's a disaster. And when people hear this about such a big coach, they think it's the norm in the industry. So I made a post about it. I talked about essentially when things like this happen, you as a coach have to do that much more to prove to people that you know what you're doing. You need that much more work to get buy-in. You charge that much cheaper because these fucking assholes will take advantage of shit, And as a lifter and whatnot, you're a lot less likely to work with a coach. Myself, for example, I went years without coaching. I started lifting, I'm going to say in 2013. I didn't pick up my first coach until 2019 because of what I saw out there. In-person training was a mess. Remote coaching seemed like a joke to me. GZCL, Ensons, Candido, all this shit, bro. It was just basically, here's fucking volume, get this shit fucking done. Just do a shit ton of work. And I was like, if it comes down to that, I could just do my own work. That's basically what I did.
Yeah.
I came to the remote coaches and whatnot. Back then, it was just a travesty. I can't even remember who the fuck was available back then. It was a non-starter. I was like, nope, not happening. And in 2019, I found somebody local and said I decided to work with them. It didn't work out for whatever reason. And then I get another coach until I want to say till 2022.
2022.
And then that also didn't work out. You know, again, I have a very, I have a very, I want to say, like like interesting personality, so to speak. And
He's really opinionated when it comes to coaching.
Legit.
That's one way to put it.
So whatever. I finally worked with James, and I think I hit it where I needed to be. I need somebody basically who's as energetic as I am and shit like that, and I want to say just as chop busting as I happen to be. It keeps me honest, more importantly. Somebody basically who will tell me a flat no and so on and so forth, as opposed to saying, oh, maybe we could do this, or the cases. I need somebody who's a lot more rigid, and a person who doesn't fucking give me pats on the back. I need somebody who fucking
someone that doesn't bullshit.
And he's a lot more responsive, right, compared to the other coaches that you had.
Yeah, I understand. Basically, there was that they also told me that they wanted to communicate in a certain kind of way. That's fantastic. It's cool. I understand the expectation there, but also at the same time, if I'm reaching out to you because you're a new coach and whatnot, and I'm being told that like there are issues with response and so on and so forth, that I can only you can always speak to me, I guess, during certain times of the day and whatnot. It makes me wonder how seriously you're taking your coaching. How seriously you take, I guess, your relationship with your athlete. Myself, I'm a coach over 70 people, whatnot, and my response time is through the fucking roof. I don't have I'm not like Joey Flexx and whatnot, who has fucking months and months between responses and shit like that. For people once money hits and whatnot, I respond pretty damn quickly. So I know how much I care about my lifters. I know what I can do with that big of a roster. If you have a small roster, you're not responding to your people, whatnot. I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. It's my take and whatnot.
Definitely.
Not to throw any shade around where the case happens to be, because people have their own lives and they have their own priorities and have the way they want to do things. That's fine, fantastic. But I prefer things to happen differently. With James, I reach out to the guy. I get a response usually a couple of minutes, usually maybe a couple of hours and whatnot. I don't mind. He responds to me. But the most.
I'm the same way. I kind of pride myself on being very responsive.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason. If you're, if you dedicate yourself to your coaching business, there's really no excuse to not be responsive. At least within a couple hours. It doesn't need to be an instant response. Especially for someone like you, who you could be out fucking fighting a fire or something. So with it, but I guarantee as soon as you fucking finish and get back in the truck, you're like, hold on, I need to see if any of my people reached out to me.
Yes, it's just,
you know what I mean?
I end up being
I think I said, what's funny is I missed a Slack notification from one of my lifters, and I didn't answer. It was I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I didn't answer. I didn't see it till the next morning. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see this. And he was like, it's fine, and I'm like, I think I have more anxiety about the response time sometimes than the actual athlete does.
Same thing here with
reasonable. You know what I mean? They as long as because most people understand, you're not buried in your phone 24 hours a day, especially if you have other responsibilities.
Unless you're Mark, you have to run a meme page full time as well. That feeds.
What's that?
Unless you're Mark and you have to run a meme page 24/7, and that you actually get your clients from.
This is my business, baby.
Yeah, that's your business plan.
So I think what it ultimately comes down to, though, isn't so much, I guess, the actual response time themselves, which is nice, it's fantastic, whatnot. But it comes down to effective communication. Now, for example, me and James, we respond very, very, very infrequently. Frankly, at this point in time, I didn't even send him videos. I post them to Instagram, just leave it be there. Yeah. I don't need him to gauge my RP because I know where my RP is. Rate of perceived exertion. Who's perceiving the exertion?
True. James.
Clearly, it's my coach, right? Well, I overshoot, yes.
Yeah. What I do, at least for me, is I'll send you the videos just so you can see what the fuck I did, just so you can see how I.
No, that's good.
My list was good.
Yeah, and I want to see that. That's information I need. But we've got to the point where, me and James, at least, we have certain we have certain expectations, and I know where I'm supposed to be hitting with certain thresholds. So I don't see the point of me sending videos to him when, in other words, I know what I'm going to be doing, and I know what the RP for that happens to be. I think we're good there. What I send him the videos for, and what I send him post the videos for, is to hear if I'm going touch and go on bench press as opposed to pausing. If I'm missing depth perhaps on squats. If my lockouts are fucking shitty on deadlifts and whatnot. If I'm maybe overshooting to an extent and whatnot. And that stuff doesn't need immediate response. At least for me. A teacher. I find it's important to gauge people's RP when they're first starting off. But at some point in time, you learn what your RP is. You have to. Or you figure out that the RP doesn't work for you. Maybe just stick to percentages. Work off of that. But I don't know, man.
Yep, I agree.
So there's a range here. If coaching requires communication. If you're doing what Joey Flexx does, you're not responding to your people for weeks on end after asking you basically, what do you think about this video over here? That's an issue. If a person's asking you like a direct question over here and whatnot, and it's like something a pressing matter, you're not responding for days at a time, whatnot, that's an issue there. If you're charging,
Also, if you're sending a video too, and you're like, and you ask a specific question, or even if you don't, and all you get it as a response is, "Good stuff, man. Like keep it moving." Is like,
yeah, no,
I mean,
all right.
there are times when that's warranted.
Sending you a video for a reason.
Yeah, and there are times when that's warranted. However, though, if a person's asking for the input and they're saying to you, like I saw some of the stories that were posted about him, like some of the posts about Joey Flexx, they're asking him to point the question and talking about pain and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And the guys tell him to essentially just fucking like, to use like, Theragun and to like,
No, did you see the other one? It was like this guy was like, "Oh, by the way, my back." It was like, I don't remember what it was. Like I think it was like my back hurts or something. The next message by him was like 3 days later. By the way, what's up with the payment?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then.
Oh god damn, that's. So there are times I guess for short responses, like one word answers, like good lift, that kind of stuff. But if a person's asking you and telling you that they have pain and so on and so forth, it becomes a lot more pressing to get a response in time. Because what is this person going to do? Not lift for days on end, or continue lifting as usual and make a situation worse? We're not pretending to be like DPTs, doctors, like physical therapy, and whatnot, or doctors, as the case happens to be. But there are some things that we've experienced that work a little bit better in those contexts. And if your response after that is, "When was the last time you paid me?" That's an issue.
That's definitely an issue.
So this is basically some stuff that we see there. I think that it presents problems for us as coaches, because when you see that basically as the person who's at the peak of the coaching world doing things of this nature, it maybe makes a person believe that that's the norm. That's how these things work out, and it turns a person off from that coaching. I certainly have worked with people in the past who were not bought in, who decided to do their own thing. And like a whole lot of it had to do with the fact that they frankly thought that the coaching was a scam. Yeah, and I don't understand why they even picked up the coaching, like to work with me when they had that mindset. Like it bewilders me. But a whole lot of the reason is because they see these top coaches doing that stuff. It's not, and Joey Flexx isn't the only one to do that. There are stories about other coaches, whatever. We're not going to talk about that. I don't think it's worth getting into. But as a top coach, you need to understand that you're under a lot of scrutiny, and you set the precedent for the other coaches underneath you. And I think maybe I guess they need to be operating a different kind of level. I don't know. It's 2023 and whatnot. I understand why people settle for shitty coaches like that.
I mean, I don't know. The thing is that from what I've seen, like a lot of the top coaches are like, they have like pretty similar tactics to Joey Flexx, like pretty much cookie cutter programs, like late responses. And like for me personally, when I first started powerlifting, I was training by myself, right? Like I was kind of scared to getting a coach, because from what I've seen from other people, like they would literally just get a program and just like follow that. And I was like, okay, I can do that myself. Like I don't need that. And then I got with my first coach, which was like a disaster basically.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point. But I was lucky enough to meet you, I guess, and like I couldn't ask for anything better, to be honest. Like that's all I wanted from the coach, like quick responses.
Actual coaching.
Yeah. Like help when I need some help. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna be on your balls 24/7, or at least I might be, but I don't know. You tell me. But like, I'm not gonna like bust your balls 24/7 about like everything. But if I have an issue, like if I have like a concern, like I know if I hit you up, you'll respond to me as soon as you can. Yeah. So that's all I want. That's all I need.
Yeah, it just basically comes down to like actually being a coach. Being a coach requires communication, effective communication. It requires communication, which isn't just good job when it's not a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it you being toxic to people? They're also abusive.
You need to hold people.
I'm sorry?
You need to hold people accountable.
Yes, accountability there. And also it's finding a person at their wavelength and dealing with them there. I have some people, for example, like to get their balls busted. Mateo, for example, and other people who have to be a little more supportive. And so you figure that out by actually paying attention to what they're telling you. You start to learn that stuff. Start to figure that stuff out. I mean, there are some false expectations that people have as well. Like some people, think that you're supposed to be hounding them for videos and for this, that, and the other thing. That's absolutely not the case. As a coach and whatnot, you're supposed to be reached out to. You are basically the resource for that stuff. It's like, people have issues, they come to you and whatnot. You're not supposed to be hounding people. It's not supposed to be babysitting people. I think it's a very bad notion that people have whatnot. Not supposed to be coddled. But the fact that you're paying me X amount of dollars per month doesn't mean that I'm your babysitter.
Well, there's expectations and responsibilities from both parties.
Yes. And nor does it mean that I'm supposed to be like your glorified RP gauger. You know what I mean? That's not it. I'm here to coach you. My whole thing is basically to bring a person up, to speak about strategy, to speak about different things in technique, perhaps, to worry about what's going to happen from now until a month from now, fucking to a year later. This is actual coaching. Many people feel that like when you're hiring a coach, you're hiring somebody to gauge your RPE, forgetting the fact that RPE can only be gauged by yourself. You know, I think that's one of the issues that I've been realizing more as I guess time has been going on as my roster has grown. You know, that's something I guess that's a notion I have to disabuse people of. You have a whole lot more productive conversations when you talk to a person about like overarching themes and about things that actually cause them to do better versus talking about like the what's we call it, the infinitesimal stuff, the minuscule stuff, the RP itself, that particular lift. You know,
missing the forest for the trees.
precisely,
So to speak.
precisely. And so it's now the task is basically getting people out of that mindset and showing them basically it's the overarching theme of like what we need to be doing and how we should be working together. You know, I think that's what a good coach does, as opposed to just like saying, in other words, like here's the RP for this. You know, this is how many reps you did over here. These reps are fantastic. How about instead of talking that we say, okay, so now your numbers are here. Let's consider this meet. Let's consider that meet. What's the ETA, for example, for you, I guess, reaching a national stage performance? What are other things that we can be incorporating in your training to make you a better lifter? What are the things you're doing well off of? What are the things that are driving you down? What are the external factors that are working against you right now? What are the external factors that are working for you? That's coaching. Me saying that was RP6,
Totally
RP7 isn't coaching. That's one of the many small infinitesimal facets of it and whatnot, but is it as beneficial as the other things? No. You know, like me working with Horse, for example, instead of like talking about RP and so forth, I get a chance to speak to him about like what's happening to warm-ups there. And lo and behold, that's beneficial.
For other people, what's going on with their life.
Yep.
Like,
Also, what's going on with their life. Yeah. You know, I've had people and stuff like that who were telling me that they're going through, I guess, like, you know, breakups and so on and so forth. And I'm looking at what's happening to the lifts the past week, and it 100% correlates. You know, the numbers are tanking. Why is that? Because they're not sleeping. They're not eating. They're experiencing a whole lot of stress. So, of course, that works against them. And being able to see that context and say to them, by the way, because you're dealing with this, you can have these issues, is very beneficial. Because now they say, you know what, I'm going through a period of suck right now, and I'll come out of it at the end of it at some point in time. If people are going on cuts because they suddenly choose to go on cuts and whatnot, this is something that you can now work on. Say, okay, you're going through a cut. This is not the most anabolic of things. You're going to find your numbers are going to be decreasing and or plateauing. I find bench press like suffers immediately, squats are close to that, and deadlifts may be the most robust out of them all. You know, we start to figure this stuff out by doing actual coaching, starting to ask those questions, starting to work on basically what drives a person forward and so on and so forth. And there's so many different facets, so many different like moments where basically upon asking questions that were actual coaching, we fleshed out certain things and found out where issues were at. You know, like people like, you know, like taking what you call sleeping aids the night before their training and whatnot.
Don't look at me, bro. Okay, I did it once.
Not just you. I've seen it on many other occasions. Like,
well, it's prioritizing building the relationship and effectively communicating so you can find out, like you said, like what could be inhibiting their progress, what could be helping them, things like that. So, you know, if you're saying, oh, you can only contact me, you know, one time a week or a couple times a week on this day, and I only do check-ins on this day, I feel like that's what's ultimately inhibiting like the ability to form a relationship and have effective communication. And you're not gonna find out much by talking to someone once a week.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, like there's that many things that you can answer within like once a week. You cannot answer like every single question that a person has like throughout the week.
Like, hey, give me the rundown of your life.
Like a 5-page like essay about what happened throughout the week. Like like
or worse
it's
yet,
not happening.
Or worse yet, somebody has like a pressing issue and they'll forget it.
Yeah,
you know, you're not going to remember everything.
Oh yeah, it's like you know what you said earlier about, you know, what if someone experiences pain or an injury in training, and then they're like, oh, I can't reach out to them for 4 more days, so I'm just going to go on about the program, not really understanding how to adjust anything on the fly so that they don't make it worse, which ultimately ends up making it worse in the long run. Yeah. Like I had a lifter last week who reached out and said, hey, my knee was really bothering me on my top set of squats, or warm-ups rather. Didn't bother me on top set, but then when I moved to bench, setting up and like, you know, setting up my leg drive, all that stuff, I was like feeling this like pain in my knee. And I was like, all right. And I know that he squats the next day. I said, listen, go in, start warming up. If it's still bothering you, switch to leg press or something, leg extension, just cut it. Yeah. You know, and then because I knew he was going to squat again 3 days later, I'm like, all right, you know, reduce the stress to the knee for this one session, and let's see if it just works itself out by the time you squat again. Yeah. And it ended up being fine, you know. And he didn't reach out again, and I talked to him today. Because I had to reach out to him to be like, hey, how was your knee the rest of the week? Like, was it okay? Because you didn't leave me any notes. I assume that because you didn't leave me any notes that it's fine, but I wanna reach out and make sure.
Of course.
And he's like, yeah, you know, he's like I felt it a little bit, but it was tolerable, much better than it was on Monday. You know, I was like, all right, great. You know, I'm gonna make some slight adjustments to the program for this week. So, you know, by the end of the week, you really won't squat heavy again till the end of the week, and hopefully it works itself out. If it doesn't, you know, I gave you some guidance on how to make some adjustments in the program, like on the fly.
Yes.
You know, and that's ultimately what coaching is.
Yes, and I have conversations I would say on a fairly regular basis. You know, just I don't know, man. I think you need to be able to flesh that stuff out, develop the rapport, and develop the relationship there. And I think that's the most important thing. Once that relationship is established, and you have a person who you feel like you feel open to speaking to them, whatnot. That's where everything gets.
I was just going to say that. Like, more importantly, you need to let the athlete know that it's okay to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And that they feel comfortable to actually, you know, reach out and say, hey, coach, I experienced this thing today. What should I do?
Yes. 100%.
You know, and then you guiding them through that process is a huge, huge thing in terms of like the coach-athlete relationship, I think, anyways.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that's what's most important. You know, so seeing big coaches basically who don't do that whatsoever, in lieu of the fact that I guess like they want to grow the rosters into the many hundreds and whatnot, is an issue, and it undermines a whole lot of very good coaches.
You can't do that if you have 200 people.
No, you can't.
I mean, unless you have like 80 people and like work like 100 hours a week.
I think it's all possible.
And you still make it happen.
You know, I worked last week. I worked even more. I worked 140 hours last week.
Next week is gonna work like more hours than there's in a week.
No, but anyway, so you know, I find that it's all possible. It's all doable. What happens? You know, we all have limitations. I happen to do despite I guess like the workload that I have. I'm used to that. I'm a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other coaches aren't, and they should understand their limitations. You know, work off it. Again, like, you know, Joe Flexx isn't the only coach who does this. You know, he's a symptom of, I guess, like a bigger thing here. You know, like even in an intrastate level, there's another coach, I guess, in New York who has over 100 people he works with.
There's a couple actually.
Yeah. You know, so you find the same thing.
I'm sure
the issue. You know, is basically just securing a paycheck from these people and doing very little work whatsoever, and it reflects in the performance and the results of the lifters. And I think it's something which definitely needs to be addressed, and people definitely need to talk about. You know, it needs to be exposed when it's there.
All right. So.
All right, boys. Well, I would love to keep this conversation going, but the closest power bar is an hour away.
Yeah, and also, I should be getting out of there here soon as well because I got to train and I need to take my caffeine early enough so I can sleep.
Yeah, and I also need to get out of here and go to work.
Nice.
Another 100-hour week.
That's good.
If Mateo doesn't sleep 7 hours tonight, he's going to be angry.
I'm going to be really angry.
He's angry.
I'm angry. No, then I'm going to blame it on my coach. Like my next bad meet performance, I'm going to be like, it's all his fault.
Yeah.
He didn't let me sleep 8 hours.
I drank caffeine at 8 p.m. I slept 3 hours. Ylli, what the hell, man?
Why is my
performance trash?
This is all
why
your
didn't
fault.
you stop me?
Clearly, it's your programming, which is the issue.
No, why didn't you stop me? You're my babysitter, right?
Clearly, you're programming, Ylli.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, no.
So.
No, that was a good conversation, boys. I think we could kind of pick up where we left off on the next one. We could talk a little bit more about this if you guys want to talk more about.
Maybe actually talk about Sheffield this time because it's around the corner. Like
I think so. Reconvene sometime this week, the week after, like later in the week, and let's continue where we left off, guys.
All right.
It was a good one.
All right, boys.
Thank you, Mark. All right, peace.
Love y'all.
Love you too.